Likewise.
And Jeanette, welcome, welcome. Okay, so lots and lots to talk about today. So I don't want to wait too much longer, but I'll keep my eye on the front door here and make sure that everyone's getting in if there's others that want to join us today or are able to join us. So, wow, week 3, very exciting times for the course. This is where people start to kind of lose their minds because the budget part is a little bit difficult, right? I mean, it's hard to know. And I think one thing for me to tell you guys is that our budgets are fluid, you know, just like our business plans and our approaches, our solutions, our understanding of the problem, our understanding of our customer segments, both the beneficiaries of our work and those who either buy or fund or invest in it. We're always trying to create greater depth. For those of us who have new ideas and new projects that we're forming, we need to start to lay the groundwork for what our budgets look like. For those of us who have been doing our work for a while, we can use the information, the things that we've learned from budgeting to forecast and predict and make changes. But the most important thing that I want to get across is that, you know, yeah, you're going to get it wrong. You're going to price things and maybe it'll be too much money. That rarely ever happens for us. But in other instances, we realize that we've run short and that we actually always need more funding to be able to do the work that we want to do, or to be able to address the problem with the level that we want to address it. So I want you guys to think about your budgets as a prototype. These are things that we can continually have to do research about, that we have to visit every day. We have to be talking about our numbers all the time. Even in the corporate setting, in my illustrious day job, you know, I'm always getting reporting from my controller, my finance team. Hey, this is what the numbers are looking like today. What does this tell us? How can we shift? How can we change? How can we get better? So, so much to say, don't get caught up in getting it right, because you're never, you know, it's always going to be a work in progress. The contexts are always changing. The pricing is always changing for those of us doing, you know, building projects or well projects, or, you know, things where we're constructing items. You know, the market shifts quite a bit, or for those of us dealing with, you know, direct services, the needs of the folks that we're working with shift as well. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic taught us a lot about that. A lot of organizations were shifting their missions completely to address immediate needs within their communities, and having to rethink their budgets, rethink their spending, rethink their staffing, and rethink how they're talking to their donors or investors or customers about the products and services that they provide, so that everyone could be in the loop about those changes. So without further ado, I want to take a little page from Brene Brown today with our check-in, and just do a really simple 2-word check-in. So we're going to have to try really hard to not explain ourselves too much here, but I want you to think about 2 words that just really describe how you're feeling right now today. And share that with the group, and we'll do that at close as well. So I'll go first, and then I'll call on the next person, and then you can choose who gets to go next. For me today, I feel really energized, but I'm also really sore. So let's see. I'm gonna choose Rosalina to go next.
Hi, thank you. Well, I will say I am shocked because I got some news that are not really good. So I really got surprised. I'm still, you know, trying to digest that. But well, it's nothing so bad. Well, yes, it's bad, but it's not about me, it's about another person. So, but yeah, I'm shocked. And also I will say I am feeling grateful. I try to, since some time ago, to always think about this every day, because it really helps to keep me in a good mood. So yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Who do you want?
Bianca.
Thanks. Hey guys, it's great to be here. So I'm gonna focus on the two words, and I'm feeling excited and glad. Those are two good things, like two good feelings for today, because I oh God, I'm trying not to explain myself too much here, but yeah, I lived in Rio for a while, and last year I went back to my home state. I'm based in Brazil, just to. So I went back to my home state, and then I spent a lot of time without seeing my friends from Rio. And today, all of them are coming here, and I'm in São Paulo, and we're going to a festival together. So like everyone's gonna be here. And it's a happy day.
I love that. Who would you like to choose to go next?
Let me see. Moises.
All right.
Thank you, Bianca. That sounds awesome. Have fun at the festival. I am also excited and I feel persistent. I'm excited to tackle the remainder of this class.
Yes. Good stuff. Who do you choose?
I'll choose Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. My two words would be overwhelmed, and I'll do TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday.
I agree. I feel both of those things. And who do you want to go next? Oh,
Gloriana.
Ariana.
Thanks, Rebecca. You're probably watching the news in our country or in the world for that matter. Okay, so I'm feeling very excited. As Shelly knows, I encountered some like roadblocks and big questions about the foundation through which I would fundraise for my project. And so I suddenly thought, well, maybe this is not going to work, but thankfully I was able to resolve them in a very exciting way. And so I'm back again, excited knowing that this project is going and that I can use this class to help shape it.
That was great. It was really great to be able to witness that over a span of a day. And I can't tell you how many times I go through that with my own work. So, yep, solidarity on that. Who would you like to go next? Oh, yeah, on mute.
Anjanette?
All right, Anjanette.
Yeah, so for me, I also think a bit stressed, although it's a bit excited also because I'm working on some requirements for my travel. So I'm a bit of a planner, so I'm stressed about all the requirements that I need to do for my travel. But yeah, it's stressful but exciting also. I'll call on VD.
All right, and if we have VD, and if you can't speak, then you can put it into the chat.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. So today, what I feel right now is I'm living in the dark because of the electricity. Luckily, we use solar. That's why I can achieve my Wi-Fi. So feeling stressed And so one thing is happy to be here at the moment. And then after this, I think I will be stressful again because of for my project, and also a lot of the challenge and limitations are ahead of me, and also the financial thing as well. That's why I'm enjoying to be part of this course.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you could make it today. Thank you for using your solar power to join us. So we have Flor or Otobi next. I'm not sure.
Zoom user, I think.
Okay, that's Otobi. Otobi, are you able to speak?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening from this side of the world. I'm in South Sudan, and it's already 18 hours. It's a big contrast to many parts of the world. So, yeah, today I've had a very rough week since the last class. So we are having like emergencies after another, displacement from Central Africa. And then we also have the situation in our neighboring country, Sudan. So we are really on high alert. We are expecting a little bit bothered. But the good news today is a public holiday because of the Eid. So at least I'm sure I will have some time to catch up with the course. I've at least been trying to read the material and probably fill in the assignment for the week. So a little bit of excitement, but we know that the coming week is going to be quite, it's quite an unpredictable state right now. So thank you.
Thank you for being
and
here.
So automatically the last person is
Flor.
Flora.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi,
Okay.
Flor. Welcome.
I just arrived. I don't know what are you sharing.
Yeah, we're just doing a 2-word check-in. So just saying 2 words that describe how we're feeling today.
I'm okay. It's Friday. To be honest, I just end a meeting, and I have to share my thoughts in English, and I'm still like a bit feeling vulnerable about it, like, to be honest. And I ended the meeting a bit reflected about, okay, there is more space to improve and more space to learn how, especially by this course, I have to pitch to my potential fundraisers my project, and I realize how important for me is to continue practice into building this confidence, and because for me in Spanish it's really simple to connect and share things with passion, and in English is something new for me. So I am totally being honest on what I'm feeling right now. But I'm happy to be here because it's a way to practice, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for practicing. You're doing a lovely job. And I think so many of us can relate to that. It's hard there's words that don't exist in some languages, and being able to translate that is difficult. And it's our number one thing as human beings is communication and trying to understand one another. And I think it's one of the biggest hurdles that we have, even when we speak the same language, right? So, all right. So how is it going with our assignments so far? Anybody have any reflections or questions or complaints? All is welcome here. Rasalina.
Yes. Well, I have been. I would like to say that this exercise of the second week of creating a persona and developing the donor journey, which I haven't done yet because I had some questions about it. I'm not sure how really to do this, but I have been investigating and looking for so much information that it's so useful at this stage of my project, and that I didn't know that I could, find different networks. I could find potential partners that can really, that can support my goal, because they are aligned. There are many organizations actually here in Portugal and in Europe that are supporting projects in this health sector, but especially for elderly. And I have a question about this, about persona, because I am not sure if when we have to describe this identity of what the persona is, will be from the side of a customer, from the side of a donor, or from the side of simply a potential partner that can help support our innovation with validation, with focus groups, with different tools. So my question is, we can develop this for this persona for all these, or it will be basically just for donor?
No, for all of it. And where this work comes from is user experience design. So a product like CBT Nuggets, where I work, we create various personas for what customers might use our training. And that way we can refine both how we develop the product and how we approach those types of personas. So when we begin the work, we can think of, one person maybe that we work with a lot. And then as we grow our influence, both with those who fund or purchase and those who are the beneficiaries or customers of our work, we can see affinity groups within that, so we might have a lot of beneficiaries in your case who are, elderly people within a certain context. And so we can start to build these affinity groups and use those personas to kind of know how to approach those groupings. So yes, it should and could and must be used across all of those, because that helps us to really, it's an empathy building exercise. But beyond empathy, what it helps us to do is to ensure that our efforts are being directed in the appropriate place. So why would I, even think to apply this context to fundraising? Well, what I learned both as a fundraiser, but even more so as a donor, was that, sometimes people would approach me with projects that did not align with the types of things that that my program funds, that we had designed to fund.
I found that.
Yeah.
and one thing that I want to say about that is that I don't know if this is normal that happens, but when I was investigating about the potential funders, I realized that I could, I could develop more my solution. I really thought about what you said at the beginning of this course, that we should not be in love with the product that we're creating or the service, but with the problem. And I found a lot of things, and also I learned about what other projects have been developed, and I said, wow, there are a lot of more things that we can do, and especially now with the artificial intelligence, technology development, etc. And that's actually where most of funders are basing their needs for funding solutions that are linked to technology use. So I said, well, I should maybe rethink about my solution. Yeah, it's a process that goes and comes. And I'm really a bit now like, okay, I think I need to start from the beginning again and try to develop more the solution also. So
That's wonderful. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's really exciting because you ensure your relevancy, you ensure your ability to stay, working on these problems when we do that type of research, and we, really try to work alongside those potential funders or purchasers, as well as, our beneficiaries. And it also helps with effort, because all of this takes so much work. And if we're writing a grant or writing a proposal for an RFP, and we spend hours, days, sometimes weeks or months on those projects, and only to find out that there are pieces to our work that don't align with that particular funder, we've wasted a lot of time and energy and resources. And it's also so hard on our psyche and our emotional body to continue to hear those rejections. That's a muscle that we need to develop as well. So it really helps us to know where to go, what's the path of least resistance, and where can our efforts be best spent in terms of working with a funder. Now, can someone change their mind or learn something from conversations with you? Yes, I have reached out to different donor groups and said, hey, I see that you fund these types of projects, and I see these are the paradigms that you are looking to explore. My project is similar to that, but we're doing something a little bit more innovative. Do you have, is your mind open enough to explore this, next thing, or are you not ready for that? And oftentimes they're like, yeah, let's talk about it. But I had to have that conversation before I just did the proposal and did all of the work and built the project and then, submitted the thing. You have to be able to have those conversations, which is great, because if you're able to get into the door and have those conversations, then, you're building a relationship. And the number one thing that I found is if someone contacts me prior to submitting a proposal and ask questions of me, I can tell them before they, do the work of the proposal, your thing doesn't really fit in with me. Maybe in the future it will, but I know these other donor groups or foundations or individuals or agencies that do fund that work. And I'd be happy to either make a connection or, do an introduction or something like that for you so that you can continue to have that conversation. So not being afraid to reach out and see, and sometimes they don't want to talk to us, but sometimes they do. And ask questions and build that relationship and get advice about the work that you're doing. Then people want, their mind goes to always wanting to help, not just leave you with it, because we don't like saying no to people either as funders. So, being able to give you somewhere else to go feels good to that side of things.
Yes, I just wanted to add something also that surprised me, that I didn't know that we could find funders or donors that can help, not just when the project is on the run, when it's developed, when you already have like 2 or 3 years operating, but at least in my case, I found some potential funders that can fund the idea validations, the validation of the product, of the service, of the intervention. And I said, wow, this is incredible. I never thought that at this stage we could find funders that can support. So maybe I just sharing this because maybe I would like to encourage all of you to do this research, because maybe you can find these opportunities also from the local, at the local level or at the international level.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you bring that up, because I've actually experienced that as a funder, working with an organization that was innovating a new program for unhoused people, and they needed they didn't have the social proof, they didn't have the metrics to say this is going to actually make an impact. And I thought that what they were trying to do is really exciting and innovative. So my company paid for them to engage a university to do a project around creating, this gets a little deep, but creating a mathematical equation almost for determining social return on investment for the work that they were doing. So looking at all the different stakeholders within the system and understanding how this specific project and these specific interventions would impact other service providers. And so the return on investment wouldn't be so much, wouldn't be just working with those particular people, but also it would positively impact the entire system and take pressure off of other service providers if they were able to do this. So, by the interventions that they were doing, which were providing social engagement and work and different community building efforts alongside people who were unhoused and living in emergency shelters, that would take some pressure off of emergency rooms and police and different city actors who are working on the street with these folks. So being able to say, hey, this actually makes a mathematical, a dollars and cents impact on these other organizations and lightens their load. So not only does your investment support these people, but it actually has a positive financial impact on the entire system within the community. So, that was an exciting thing to be able to fund, because we could talk about it through metrics and actually show a greater ripple effect impact because of that. And, I think all of us are excited about that, because now that organization can convey to all of their donors that when you give me X amount of money, that money is actually having a social return on investment that is much greater than those funds, if that makes sense. Anyone else on assignments, questions, complaints, concerns? Okay, good. So yeah, let me just do a little screen share here. So let's do this as a little slideshow. Everybody be able to see that? No? Okay, good. Let's see. So we've been working on our lean canvas, continuing to bring depth. I'm putting this example in the deck, which I'll share with you today on the Moodle platform. But I thought this was a beautiful example from a previous class about a specific project that a student was working on. And, obviously continuing to think about the depth of the problem, the depth of the solution. We have been working hard with these personas so we could have a beneficiary persona. And we're thinking, you guys have been doing a beautiful job, those of you who have been able to complete your personas already, really thinking through all of the different contexts of those that your programs or services are serving, but also thinking about donors. And one of the most important thing that you'll hear me say about donors or investors is that we really need to have some solid information about how to connect with them. And then, these types of resources provide not just us with really solid tools, but also our team. So if we're going to bring in other people to help us fundraise, then they can very quickly look at these personas and know what resources are needed, what tactics are needed, what methods to approach such people so that we can really refine our efforts. And same thing with, foundations. These are very different than individual funders. And sometimes we need to know, is it worthwhile to try to reach out and have a one-on-one connection with somebody? Or are we never going to be able to get there? And so, we have to go through different, the appropriate methods of reaching out to these funders. We've also been working on our donor journeys. One thing that I really want everyone to recognize about the journeys is that it's important to condition yourself to start to think about how you're going to pivot if things don't go as planned. So it's a good practice with these journeys to have some things go wrong and to start to think about what you might do in those cases. If a donor wants to know more information about your organization, if they want more metrics and you don't have that available, then you know that these are things that you need to curate and cultivate to be able to attract that particular donor or donor group. So, you can get very deep you can be very simple, little sticky note journey, or you can get very deep with how you're looking at that. Both are okay. But, the more information you have, the more tactics you have baked in to be able to think through how to pivot and, how to not get bogged down by the no, the better you will be at succeeding in bringing funds to your organization. Our organizations always need to evolve in terms of maturity and the level that we are approaching our donors and our investors, just as much as we're putting energy into the programs and things like that. So I do want to talk about pipeline planning, but before we go very much further into that, this is a really exciting tool that I love, and I do want to address it a little bit with you guys because I think it helps everyone to kind of talk about it before you dive right into it. I want to talk about something that is kind of a dirty word in fundraising. And if you have experienced this and how you've kind of seen this in action in your work, and that is overhead. So oftentimes one of the most difficult things that we're trying to work on funding for is our overhead. And when we're going for big proposals, from like a USAID or some type of foundation, some type of state agency, they only allow us a very small amount for overhead. And that puts us into a really prickly position because we can't pay our people what they deserve. We can't run our organizations like we need to. We lack resources for, simple office supplies or the best technology. So what kinds of experiences have you guys had with trying to fundraise for the overhead costs of your work?
Well, I haven't had like a direct experience myself, but in doing research for this class and for my upcoming project, I spoke with an executive director of an organization here, and she was so proud because she was telling me that, well, she called it in Spanish administrative costs, but I think it refers roughly to the same thing. And she was so proud because theirs were always below 10% of their income, and it's often like 6 or 7%. And the question that I had from hearing that is, how do you balance that? Because operating with so many volunteers and so much pro bono work is also really hard. And how do you, and she seems to feel like she figured it out, but of course for her, that's really helped her fundraise because all the donors love to see such a low overhead cost. But I was impressed, and also like had a lot of questions in terms of how you balance that, and whether always aiming for a smaller and smaller overhead cost is like the right strategy anyway. That doesn't directly answer your question, but that's the closest experience I have.
Yeah, so much to say on that, but I want to let Bianca share, and then we'll see if anybody has some responses to that.
Yeah, I also have something that I don't know if it answers directly your question, but I've been working with some organizations as a volunteer, and I've been a member of Rotaract for a while. And last year I was with an organization based in Rio, in one of the favelas, and they have this huge amount of projects going on at the same time. Like they support the kids from the community with sports classes, dance classes, English classes, and school support and everything. Like there's everything there. And they kind of got a few grants before, and a little bit of funding before from other organizations. But last year I was working on getting some fun for our English project. I joined them because I was teaching English there to the kids. And then I found this opportunity. I found it on LinkedIn, and I learned about this foundation, and they were looking to support small and medium nonprofits who were working with kids in this education area with English and things like this. And the thing is that they wanted to pay for the teachers. They wanted to guarantee that the organization would have someone there, because it's a challenge that we face, like having someone there that is going to be able to continue the work, because we get volunteers all the time, but they can stay for real, like for a long time. And that was the goal of the funding. But the issue was that when I had the first call with the girl who was representing the organization, I was trying to explain the whole situation because she asked me about it. And I was telling her that we did have volunteers and that we had this issue of keeping volunteers there because we couldn't help them like get there. We couldn't offer any help with like transportation and food and things like this. And sometimes people would get like other opportunities, like what happened to me, and I couldn't stay there. So, but the thing is, our biggest issue, apart from that, was that we didn't have like the resources, the necessary resources to offer like a great experience to the students. And since it's not expensive to pay for an English teacher here, and since it was a UK-based foundation, I asked her about a rate, like how much do you expect to pay teachers? And they gave me a rate, and I was like, okay, that's great, that would be great for us, and we can get like a lot less. But then she told me, okay, then you can put all the needs that you have, like add everything that you need, all the material and everything. And then I added everything, but at some point they got back to me saying that okay, I think we're not really looking to fund this kind of thing right now. We were actually looking to support the teachers, and the costs are not what we were expecting, and the costs were so low. So I don't know exactly what they were looking for, so it got it like this. And then at some point she also said that they were working with bigger projects, and maybe ours wasn't a fit because it wasn't so big, so at the end I didn't understand the goal of the funding.
Yeah, that's intense. Yeah. And anyone have any comment to that before I
well, just a quick comment is I worked for Techo. It's a organization based in Latin America, in many countries in Latin America, and we were struggling a lot with funds for a long period. Basically, we just had to come up with, you know, different ideas to raise money. And that's what basically we were constantly doing to survive. And naturally, we were only 3 people hired, while the entire organization, all the operations, marketing efforts, even developing fundraising strategy, everything was based on volunteers. So I think what some organizations will do is to try to thrive in the volunteering, and try to, which is it's hard also, because as Bianca said, volunteers, they just come, go, and yeah, they can support as they can, right? They are committed, but still we cannot also, you know, like make them be all the time. If we cannot somehow how can I say in English, contribute economically. But yeah, I think that what I saw, and from other organizations that I've heard too, what they try to do is to develop a robust system based on volunteers for different areas. Yeah. Totally volunteers, like Techo is based on volunteers, even for everything, volunteers for, you know, for even pitching the company in front of private corporations to get funds, or for coordinating a group of volunteers to go to the intervention field to do some task. I mean, there was a hierarchy of volunteers, and this system somehow worked, but I don't know how sustainable it could be, you know, like
yeah. And I mean and with volunteering, it takes a lot of effort to train, right? To be able to train our volunteers and then to make them want to stay, you know, to Bianca and Gloriana's point, you know, having that be a sustainable function doesn't work. If in my tech education company that I work at, you know, would we have volunteers come in and, you know, innovate all of our systems? No, because that's kind of like, you know, people who have extra time or the will to do so they don't always have the expertise. And it's not them, you know, we're not hiring for talent. We're just hiring for people, you know, to have more people to do that work when we're looking at volunteers. So, you know, the system here is broken, because if we approached our social enterprise, you know, nonprofit organizations or environmental nonprofit organizations like businesses, we wouldn't ever encourage them to have volunteers running everything. We wouldn't ever encourage them to, you know, really even think about being the cheapest option. We would want the best option, the one that's actually making the solutions in the world. And, you know, to Bianca's point, what happens is we have people that come into organizations, and as they grow professionally, they have offers outside of that to have, you know, better salaries, better livelihood outcomes for themselves, to be able to have insurance for themselves. And to be able to have retirement income for themselves, so that they can, you know, be a healthy and have healthy families. They can be a healthy contributing person in the community. So we expect those that work in our social service sector, or, you know, our nonprofit or charity sector, to take the scraps, you know, to do this work because it's our passion and our purpose, but that it's okay for our staff to go without, salary. So that can get very impactful on those individuals, where even here in the States, those working in organizations that address poverty issues, their staff members are also users of their services, which seems grossly unfair, putting in all of your time into these things and not being able to have a sustainable life. We also look at charity work in such a way that sometimes we want our organizations to continue to be open, right? Our goal shouldn't be to create a nonprofit organization or a charity organization that lasts forever, even a social enterprise that lasts forever. Our goal should be to put ourselves out of business. And I say that because we want to put ourselves out of business because we've solved the problem that we're working on, not we're perpetuating that problem, right? So how are we able to bring in the most innovative thinkers? How are we able to tangibly address, an issue and be able to convey to those who fund us that if they fund our work, their money is going to make this much of the problem go away, instead of just conveyor belting those that we serve. Big problem in, all different types of organizations in the global South, where funders will want to know how many people your organization will, how many people your program or intervention is going to serve. I want the data. How many people does this well serve? Well, the well can serve 1,000 people, but if it breaks in a month, regardless of what funding you've given me, those people don't have water anymore. And, if I lose my engineer who, gets a job in a for-profit company, and I don't have anyone innovating that project so that we can continue to find ways that it won't break, if we can continue to find depth in our problem and be able to address problems, because we have people that have the time, the emotional stability, to be able, the mental stability, they have rest and ensure healthcare, and they're able to unplug at some point, then they're actually able to innovate new ways of actually solving the problem. So the video that we have up on the Moodle site for this week, the Dan Pallotta talk, is one of my favorites. Some of you have probably seen it before. I share it with everybody. I share it with donors all the time so that they can kind of start to address this. But this overhead myth, running on shoestring budgets, is something that we perpetuate as donors. Oh, this other organization can do this work for cheaper and they're serving more people, but it doesn't mean that that's going to be sustainable or it's actually going to have a long-term impact. So again, our work becomes far more difficult because not only do we have to have the conversation around how troubling wanting an organization to be cheaper than everyone else is, and rating how good an organization is because of that, only perpetuates these problems not being solved. So our job is to have those conversations with our funders and kind of understand where they sit with that. And for us to be able to put together our fundraising plans as business plans and say, hey, look, if you give me this money, we're actually going to be solving this problem, and you really shouldn't worry about how much I pay my staff or how much our paper clips cost. But what you should be worried about is whether or not your investment is being put to good use, or because of the system that it's a part of, it's just going to be wasted. These crises for food and water and sanitation could have been solved 1,000,000 times over if we had enough energy to put into that solution and into the systems thinking and collective impact, but also in how we care for the people that do work that cares for people. So, thinking deeply about that, I would challenge everyone to not be so concerned about that overhead, but the system also still forces us to think about that. So in some instances, your challenge becomes you get a grant funded, you're only allowed 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% overhead, but your organization costs a lot more money, even if you're running as lean as possible. then you have to go out and get unrestricted funding from someone else to be able to feed that pipeline. So a funder can't just fund your organization at large, they can only fund these projects. So you're putting together all these little projects, and then you're also having to bring in donors to feed the organization and keep it running. And that's exhausting. So, you know, we're often very, very challenged. And that's why we talk a lot about segmenting our donors, so those revenue sources. So I know that we're coming up on the end here, but I want to talk a little bit about this pipeline, unless anybody has anything else to add at this point. Okay, good. I don't want to railroad you. Okay, so let's see. Pipeline. Here we go. So when I provided this tool for pipeline planning in this course, and it's one of my most favorite tools because it is a one-page approach at looking at our entire fundraising plan. It gives us a way to really think about all the different types of revenue sources we could be bringing into our organization, and goes through both the steps that we need to acquire and eventually receive any funding, and also what staff might be involved, and thinking about what resources we need to be able to reach those investors or donors. So is your organization always going to have individuals, foundations, corporations, agencies, earned income, and impact capital? No, you know, some of us only operate in that earned income space. You know, we're doing fees for services or selling a product. Some of us are, you know, strictly going for donations, and some of us are looking at impact capital and starting to think that through. So some ways, so this is an example of, don't get scared by the dollar. Some people are like, $1 million, that's a lot of money. You know, this is an actual pipeline that I built for an organization that I work with. So these are actual numbers, but I'm going to go through all of these different columns with you really quickly so that you can kind of, as you build your own pipeline this week or next week, or by, you know, the end of the course, by the time that things are due, that you can have a little bit more insight into kind of what goes into this. So the first two columns are your revenue sources and different segments to those. So you have individual donors who might be like one-time big injection donors who give you a big lump sum, or potentially those that give you money on an annual basis. Sometimes it's a monthly basis as well. Your foundations, where they can either give you grants or provide program investments. Corporations that provide grants and sometimes sponsorships for your different elements, you know, maybe an event sponsorship or sponsoring, you know, one piece of the program. Agencies, so your local, state, federal, and international agencies that you can get funding from. Earned income, so this is anything that you might sell to generate funds for your work, any services, products, consulting that you're doing, if you're licensing something that you've created and allowing other people to purchase it and use it. Maybe a membership to your organization or tuition. Sky's the limit. It could be a lot of different things there. And then impact capital. And these could oftentimes be loans that you're getting that you pay back at a really great terms. You know, it can take a little bit longer to pay it off. Maybe your interest rate is a lot lower for those. Let's see. And do I have a question here? Oh, why is this? Just noticed that. Thanks. Okay, so. Okay, so when I have the column about the goal, I want you to think about your goal amount of money that you want from each of these different types of revenue sources. So it's really hard for us to operate as fundraisers for our work if we don't have a goal, so that we can know, you know, where we've come along that trajectory. Try to think about a goal for each of the sources that you'll be using to fund your project. For your prospects, that's the number of leads that you have. So you're going to need to be talking to a lot of different people within each of those segments to be able to get funding. Every single person you talk to isn't just going to give you money. So you need to really have a goal for how many people you want to be putting into that pipeline. But you also need to be real about how many people you're talking to now. And then when you look at that, you can say, oh gosh, we're only talking to 10 individual funders, or we're only selling our services to, 1 or 2 different groups or organizations or businesses or people. So we need to really put more effort as an organization into focusing on that, revenue source and finding more people to put into our pipeline. We need to be continually talking to more and more and more and more people and getting advice and connections to be able to be successful. The number of people that you are talking to, the number of people that you're engaging with, the number of people you're asking advice from is going to be the key predictor to your success. So, if you're only talking to a few people for your project, you're not going to be that successful. The more people you talk to, the more the potential for you to be successful at achieving your funding goals. For these next couple columns, the acquire, engage, solicit, and report, these are steps that your organization takes to either acquire a new donor, funder, investor, customer, to engage them in your work, to solicit them for funding or sales, and how you're going to report back to them on how that money is doing. I have some really good examples baked into my template for you that you can use right now, but this is a living document. So really look at your organization as you move forward with this tool and think about what steps your specific organization is taking to do those pieces of the work. That way, someone like a board member or a team member could look in there and see, okay, if I'm working with an individual to acquire them, I'm having a coffee, I'm doing a phone call, I'm having a video call. But to engage, an agency funder, I'm going to meetings, that include our sector where we're working, or I'm just submitting a proposal, those types of things. So when you're talking about the next column, staff, you want to identify what staff members are responsible for doing those activities, for working with those specific revenue sources. So if it's your executive director, if it's a salesperson, if it's a fundraising person, if it's a volunteer or a board member, you want to actually say who's in charge of that work for that column. And the opportunity cost is how much it costs to do that. So if you're taking someone out to coffee, or if you're having to create a website or generate reports and materials, brochures, videos, think about how much those things might cost, or at least put a little, thing in your head about that. On our lean canvas where it says channels, as I've been looking at your work, you'll see that I respond, okay, good. These are the channels that you're going to go to be able to access your customers and customer segments. So either your beneficiaries or straight up customers, or your donors or investors. Now, I want you to start thinking about what tools you need to generate to be able to do that. So that's where you kind of get a chance to think about how much, and that's an overhead, right? How much that's going to cost. And then the budget that you have for that is going to be how much it costs for the staff members that you have working on that, plus how much it costs to create the resources, assets, and materials. So if you have a development director, a fundraising director who's working on that 100% of the time, and their time costs, $40,000 US a year, and it's going to cost you about $5,000 in materials, that it costs you $45,000 a year to do that fundraising, okay? So in the end, you'll have a total budget for how much the staff costs and how much those material assets and, different things that you're doing. If it's the cost of going to coffee or taking someone to coffee or something like that, you have a total budget of what your fundraising costs. And in your goal, you know what your goal amount for fundraising for each of those segments is. So your total fundraising goal from each of the segments plus how much it costs to raise that money. Then you can kind of get a neat little equation about how much your fundraising should be out of your budget. So let me get out of here. That tool, if anyone has, any questions about it, just reach out. If you need to spend some more time with me on it, that's okay. But also, just like with everything else, don't worry about having it perfect, because that's what I'm here for, to like kind of ask you questions and guide you along the way. Okay. And yeah, so before we end it, I included slides about finding individual donors on the slides that I'll be sharing this week. So you can pop into there. A lot of people are always wondering, how do I find donors? Well, it takes research, but some other tactics as well. So you can kind of dive into those some if you have the time. Does anyone have any questions? All right.
Not for now, maybe on the process, yeah.
Yeah. And so if you have questions about stuff or you get stuck on something, don't be afraid to just, turn it in or like email it to me and say, I'm stuck on this thing. Can you help me think this through? And as those of you know who have been, turning in stuff as we go, I give a lot of advice about, if I see things that you can grow and shift, I'll say, hey, think a little bit deeper here, push a little bit deeper there. And that, to be able to support you to really talk about your work to a potential funder or investor or customer. So let's end it. Oh, sure.
Okay, it's just a quick question, and I don't
sure.
expect to get like a specific answer to it, but in coming up with the budget, I am having like questions about deciding what are things that we should definitely pay for and what are things that we could get by using volunteer work or pro bono. I'm sure that's something you just have to make a judgment call in terms of what's most important and stuff, but that's just like a general question that I'm grappling with right now, but we could address it some other time.
No, this is a great time to address it, and I have time to do that. So oftentimes this creates some extra work, but sometimes in my work with fundraising, I have as many as 3 budgets going at once. One is I get everything that I want. It's the, perfect. I've got all the resources that I need. One is I've gotten nothing. I need to use all my volunteers. And then the middle way is like kind of a conservative approach. In terms of the volunteers and the volunteering time, it is a very useful metric to understand what the cost of that volunteer would be if you were paying for it, or the cost of something that someone might give you in kind. So if someone shares office space with you and lets you use that for free, it's good to put a dollar number on that, because that's also a metric that you can report to a potential stakeholder, donor, or investor about. So you can say, we have 17 volunteers, and that is a total dollar value of, $17,000 a month. And so that way, that over time, that's what it actually costs to do the work. So you could say to a potential donor, we have volunteers doing these things today. Someday we'd love to hire staff and pay them, but this is the cost of the work, that we do. And our volunteers are saving us, this much money a year, and continue to have that conversation as you go. And, also being sure to have a metric for how much time is being spent training those volunteers, and kind of putting a dollar amount on that staff time too, because you can start to really look at that. So I think, and then, you can internally, you can say these things are things that we could get from volunteers, but also from a perspective of scaling, if we had those items paid for, we could put the volunteers on a different, project or in a different area of expansion. So always thinking, how can we grow to address this issue in a way that can actually attack it in a really positive way? Or, even is there a way in conditions and context right now to even think about a world where we wouldn't need the services that we provide? Is this something that we really need to keep sustainable over a long amount of time? But that's another conversation for another day. But, being real about what it actually costs to have those volunteers, and the difference between if you had someone that was paid to do that work and versus when you have volunteers doing it, how could the organization actually grow or bring more depth to the work if they had paid staff doing that stuff? Not an easy answer.
Thank you so much. That's very useful.
Yeah. So that's been a very valuable metric for me in the past, working with donors and having group organizations that operate with a lot of volunteers, is actually conveying, see you later, Rosalina, actually conveying the cost, of what that would have been if we paid for that, for those people who are doing, if we paid staff to do the things that our volunteers do. It's kind of eye-opening to an investor or a donor. So let's end it with a 2-word share, just like we started, and then I'll say goodbye to you. So for me, I'm going to say I'm thirsty and also energized still. What about you, Moises?
I am energized because I got my coffee in hand, and I am excited for my lengthy weekend working on my budgeting.
Woo! Awesome.
I'd like to choose on Flor.
I'm so excited that it's Friday and the weekend is starting. And I feel committed to advance with the course this weekend. So I'm energized.
All right.
Bianca?
I'm feeling hungry. Yeah, it's past lunchtime already and excited for the weekend.
All right.
No. Jeanette.
Thank you. Well, I'm I'm scared because I'm not very good with numbers, so I'm scared with all the budgeting assignment. But yeah, I'll do my best to work on it. Atobi.
Yeah, thank you. This was quite a great session. Thank you, Sally. I'm feeling quite excited, but also I see that, let me say, I've learned a lot, and I've been doing fundraising. Now I have a lot of questions running in my head about many things that I wanted to reserve because of the time for the class. I will contact Sally later, but it was great, and I'm looking forward to using the weekend to catch up with the course. Thank you, and can I pass on to Loriana?
Thanks, Toby. I remain very excited. I also just feel like the more I learn, the more questions I have, and the more things I feel like I have to do. So, but that doesn't mean I'm not excited. Bianca, you haven't gone.
We have VD and Rebecca.
Vidi,
He says it's midnight here.
yeah.
He says it's midnight here. He's feeling a bit sleepy, and he's now thinking about what he should do to accomplish the reading materials and assignments. So I know. And then last but certainly not least, Rebecca.
I'm feeling hopeful and excited to go to bed tonight.
I
Well,
love it.
everyone have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you for joining me for this conversation. I can't believe we only have one live session left. I'm already starting to feel sad about it, but reach out if you need anything. I'm here for you. I'll be grading throughout the weekend. So guys,
Thank you
enjoy.
all.
Appreciate you.
All right, thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Mhm.